Hello everyone, I'm Chris The Zelda Collector and welcome to Gossip Stones. As we all know, it is dangerous to go alone, so this is the series I'm joined by a guest and we just talk for all things Zelda. And today I am joined by Kevin Woolford.
Hello.
Yeah, and we are on part 3. We've already recorded part 1 and 2. Part 1 we got to know Kev. Part 2 we discussed 12 Zelda related questions. And part 4 is to follow next week. And in part 4 we'll be talking about a topic of Kev's choice. But like I said, we're on part 3 and today we're just discussing Kev's favourite Zelda game in the franchise. And you told us at the end of last stream what your favourite Zelda game was. Do you want to let everyone know?
Ocarina of Time, and as I said, it's 2.
Yes, but you picked 2.
It sort of flows from... at the time of playing the game, it's my favourite because all Zelda games I enjoy as I'm playing them, whether it's Triforce Heroes, stuff like that. But once you're in that moment, then that becomes my favourite. They keep rotating. Yeah. So Breath of the Wild is up there, of course. But at the moment, Ocarina of Time and, Zelda 2. The infamous Zelda 2.
The infamous Zelda 2. They're quite good games to discuss with me at the moment, actually, because as I said, I'm currently on playing Ocarina of Time on stream. And as you know, I finished Zelda 2 a month or so back. So basically, why? Basically, let's just start with why. Why Zelda 2? Why Zelda 2? Or do you want to talk? Have you got a way you like discuss them?
No, it's cool. Zelda 2 was a game, which I said in one of the previous episodes with you. It was a case of I tried it once as probably about 12 years old. And I died over and over, and I was like, I'm never playing this again. I don't see the point. And then recently, I'd say just before Christmas, Amanda's brother came over, and he was like, do you want to play a game? And he was like, oh yeah, we watched like Angry Video Game Nerd playing Zelda 2. Yeah. And he's raging, he goes mad, and he says he can't, defeat Dark Link and stuff like that. And I was like, yes, let's give it a go for a laugh. So we fired it up, because I was never interested in playing it again, because it was, tainted to me.
Yeah.
So we fired it up, and it was a case of, oh, well, where do we go? I wasn't looking at a guide. I didn't look at any guide. We were walking around, dying a few times, and then we went through the cave in the dark, and we got to the first dungeon. And I was like, oh, we've got to a dungeon. Right, should we just carry on? And we were taking turns, just life each, dying a few times, resetting and coming back. And then finally we got to the boss at the end, and he had a go. And you have to hit the boss in the head. It's very specific with Zelda 2. You have to be pixel perfect or they do not get damaged. And he was just smacking it and nothing was happening. And he's like, you do it. And I killed it. And I was like, oh, right, I've killed it. That's great. And then, you've got the candle and everything like that. And that's all we thought of it. We put it away. We said, that's it. We'll leave it. And in my mind, I was like, I want to play that again. I was enjoying that. So I decided to get a guide, not to spoil it, but because there's some cryptic bits in that game. Stuff that you would never, ever, like finding the mirror, summoning temples, things like that. There's no way. I mean, there's the rough, there's a hidden temple or something like that. And you're just like...
Is it playing the flute to make a temple appear?
Oh, yeah, that's
one
it.
Of them, isn't it? And
it's got to be on the exact spot. You can't go, just play it over here. You have to be exact on the right spot while enemies are still coming at you to kill you. And so I was like, I'll look at the guide, and it was just, I didn't look at the dungeon guide, I just looked at how to progress. So it would say, go to this town, and then there'll be a map, because I didn't have I've only got the loose copy.
Yeah.
So it was a case of, there's the map online to find out where you go. So it says, next, go to this town. So I'd walk, knowing it's there, get there, look around. And it got to the point where it was like, find a mirror. And I was like, well, where the hell's the mirror? I can't find that. Back to the guide, and so on. And I just progressed through that game. And I know it's a hard game. I'm not a bad game player. I'm all right. And games do make me rage. But that game didn't send me over the edge. I died a few times on Death Mountain, which is hard. Death Mountain is, and the last final stretch, getting up to the final...
The Valley of Death.
That is brutal.
The Valley of Death.
That is brutal, and that will send you back again and again. That's the only time when I was like, I didn't want to turn it off though. I just was like, oh, I'm back to the beginning, but now I've made a shortcut. So
yeah, you wanted to keep going, didn't you?
It didn't put me off. But it didn't put me off. And when I watched you play it, I enjoyed watching you play it to see what you thought of it. But you've got to see it as there's different levels of skill. Does that make sense? So, as someone with a higher skill at NES games, there's people on 10 million times better than me, and they will get through that without getting hit. And
Yeah.
they do guides on YouTube, and they just do no deaths, no hits, and speed run it, and they don't pick up stuff. Whereas I was picking up stuff and grinding to get the levels.
Yeah. You see, for me, it goes all the way back from Zelda 1 on the NES right way up to Breath of the Wild. Every enemy in every Zelda game has a method of killing it.
Yeah.
There's a process. There is. I mean, I love Lionel Hunt on Breath of the Wild, and there's a process. I know how to. My process is I parry, I go in the back, I do this. On every Zelda game, I mean, in Link to the Past, there's one you got to use your hammer to turn them over, the little shells, and you kill them. And in Zelda 2, there's a process to killing every enemy.
They're all different.
Yeah, and I knew it. And the Valley of Death, it nearly finished me off. I was so angry playing it. But that's because I was rushing. And once I slowed it down and realised I've got to wait to let the enemy come to me and do it. But I think what was frustrating for me was I would walk 5 steps. And obviously, if people don't know Zelda 2, it's like an overworld map, and you have a little character and you move around. And as you move around, enemies will appear. And when you meet up with them, it goes to a 2D side scroller, and you are just hitting with your sword. And in the Valley of Death, which is the final run up to Ganon's castle or whatever it is, it's they're there every 15 seconds, all the time, and they're brutal. And for me, it just. I think it was the amount of times that I think I was just getting frustrated. But once I slowed down and remembered there's a process, I do this. And I got through quite easily. And like I said, that's with most enemies. I mean, the Dark Nuts in that game, once you figure out how to do the jumping and get them in the head.
Yeah.
Is it the Dark Nuts where you have to...
I think so. Where, if you can, most of the time when you find one of those, there's a low roof.
Yeah.
Have you noticed? And the reason is because you can jump and stab instantly. Yeah. So it's helping you. It's actually helping you. It's like, oh, it's not there to tease you. You're not going to get him. If you just jump, the moment you hit your head stab, you'll get them. And you can just go bang, 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 and they're dead. And once you've leveled up, you can melt them in a couple of hits. But as you said, that final bit, they've got them hidden blocks, the hidden areas. So as you walk, it will set off another room full of enemies just for walking on a square, that was tedious. But and like you said, I found it. Yeah, go on.
And I did struggle with the games. Everyone, there was one bit where I was just kind of so. I was getting a bit not depressed, and I must admit there was some points in that game when I played. If I wasn't streaming, I'd have turned it off. But the fact that's why I like streaming, because it keeps us going, it keeps us the energy. I get the people behind us and supporting us, and I love it. But like you're saying, I just had to slow down and remember. Like you're saying, that's why I love Zelda games. Every enemy, there's a process, and once I realised that and slowed down, and looking back, I love the game. I would love to play it again now, knowing what I know,
knowing what you know exactly, and it'll make it so much easier.
Yeah, and you can enjoy it more. And because I did, it was probably one of the most satisfying Zelda games I've beaten, because of the fact that it is hard and frustrating. But like I said, there's logic to it. It is actually it's playable once you know what you're doing.
There is unfair bits to it. But there's also, as you said, there's a pattern. So if you're rushing, it's your own fault. If you're dead, it's probably because you're messing about. But if you see the enemy and it's a proper enemy, you can't just go, stab him a couple of times and carry on. It's not like Zelda 1 where you just, there you go, stab him a couple of times, gone. You have to hit them in a certain, the guy who has the shield, and as you hit him, he's throwing daggers and he just lowers them. That's my worst enemy. That used to do me in. But you've just got to hold it, block it, and at the right moment, just quick stab.
I know what you mean. You've got to block it, knock your way through, block it, go, and you have to constantly go up and down all the way, don't you?
Yeah.
The only ones I don't like is the bird ones. I can't find a pattern for them.
Are they the ones at the end that keep leaping?
Yeah.
Is that one? I didn't have a pattern.
They chase you down.
Yeah, there was nothing you can. It was literally. I think everyone says, even in guides, run. Just make a path through the blocks and run, because they will ruin you.
Yeah, I think there's some one of the guides I read where you make a path through the blocks, or you trap them on one side. But yeah, and I think there's a couple of points where there were cheap deaths. I think there's a couple of cheap deaths in the game, but on the most end, it is kind of your own fault.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did actually really enjoy it. What was it? One of the worst things about it for me is though when you die. Back to the start. Yeah. It's crazy. You have 3 lives and it's back to the start. If you could just save from a town or something, it'd it'd be better. But that's one of the worst bits to me, when I died a lot.
That is annoying, but what I found was usually if you've done an area, there's like a boulder or something that you smashed, so you can get back quite quick.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So it's not like, oh, I've got to go through the entire map again. It's just like, nope, you've smashed a few boulders, you can cut through.
Yeah.
So,
And the experience you lose, don't you?
and then the enemies with the experience draining, them ones, like the red ones.
Yeah.
You're just trying to level up, and they hit you, they kill you, they're taking your experience, and you just go, yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, kind of, just take me life instead of me experience. You know what I mean?
Especially when you're grinding, you're right near the edge. But yeah, the grind in it, I found a little bit tedious sometimes. The whole bit at the beginning where you'll get the I don't know what they're called, like the skull in the bubble, and it would move around, and you're like,
you told me about that. I think you pretty much tipped me to say Chris had leveled his sword up. I think is it in the first dungeon?
So once the sword's up, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Then obviously there's in the water temple where the water.
That was the best.
The like you said, it's a glitch. It's this kind of
it's in the game. It's not cheating.
Yeah.
It's farming. So you're just in a good position.
Farming, yeah. Not
so he's in the position to come in, and you just keep stabbing him, and he just drops the pea bags non-stop, and you just pick them up, and you level to max, and then you feel like, right, I finally got some padding to me. I'm not just going to die to the first person I see. Yeah. So now you feel like you've actually got.
So, but again, though, we discussed this is your favourite Zelda game.
Yeah,
picking more fault.
No, it's fine.
On a normal progression in the game, would you max out? I don't think you would you? Without doing that farming.
I think if you just progressed through the game, you would die a lot more if you didn't farm, and then you would also not max out because you'd be dying because you weren't strong enough. Does that make sense? So you have to farm for the sake of that game. Yeah,
because I suppose I said before that you don't have to grind, but I suppose
you don't have to.
If you're good at the game, you don't. But
yeah, exactly. But you want that padding so you can go, right, I've got 3 more hits here, and not just one and you're dead and you've lost your life and you're back to the beginning. So you don't have to grind, because there is people that do the speed run and they don't grind, they just go through the level quick as they can. They've got damage boosts getting knocked along. But yeah, I really enjoy the game. I like the music. There's not tons of music in it. You've got your town music, you've got your dungeon music, your overworld music. I really enjoyed it, and for the time, hearing that people had such a hard time, and I was looking at reviews. I always do reviews before I play the game, and the amount of people that said either it's too hard or it's just trash. I gave up after 10 minutes, and I'm like, well, I don't want to give up because I'm persistent. Even when I'm raging on a game, I will keep going to see, if I can get further and get better. And you do usually get better. And once I got further, I was like, well, I'm enjoying this. This is really fun. And it's one of the first Zelda games that I feel like I've got a challenge. Yeah. There's a lot of games I don't find are that challenging. I know Breath of the Wild is quite challenging, because you've got the limited hearts. You have to choose whether you go for the stamina or the hearts. And then, of course, certain enemies will one-shot you. I got amount of times I'd walk into a place, there's a moblin, he'll just smack me and I wouldn't notice, and I'm dead in 1. And I'm like, seriously? It's a moblin? And I've just died. Dead. Yeah. So, yeah, I found it. I like the challenge. But I think
that's one of the reasons why it's one of my... Again, it's up there for one of mine and all for my favourites. For the reasons that people don't like it. And it's a challenge. And for me, the fact that I've beat it, a lot of people seem to dismiss it because it's so hard and it's hard and it's side-scroller. So the number of people who's actually beat it is quite small, really. Yeah. So you feel quite accomplished that you beat it, and it's... Yeah, and for the reasons... I quite like it, for the reasons that people don't like it. The fact that it's hard and challenging, and...
To say you've done it is an achievement.
It really is. And like we said, you just got to practice and get good. I think if people give it more time, get the first dungeon out of the way, and you get into a rhythm of it. Yeah.
And then with Zelda 1 and 2, I played 2, then 1 at Christmas. Yeah. So I could have gone the other way. I played 2, enjoyed it, and then had the challenge, and I really enjoyed it. But then I went... This is my first proper playthrough of both, like fully playthrough. So I went to number 1, and I looked at a guide to know where the dungeons were. That's, like you said. And I was just walking through it going, this is so easy. Like, I'm walking up just... Oh, the boss is dead. I've just hit him like twice. He's dead. Yeah. Why is he dead? And I was like, pick the heart up, next bit, there's a piece of the Triforce, carry on. And I didn't struggle on that game, like I said, till the final dungeon. And for me, that's what made me not like it as much, because it wasn't a challenge for me. I mean, maybe other people, like my son, for instance, if he played it, he probably wouldn't last 10 minutes. But for me, I was like, this is so easy. And once you've got a potion, I was never drinking it. I had the same blue potion, or red potion, I always forget which colour first, all the way through, basically. And I never drank it till the final dungeon, and that was it. So,
yeah,
I like the challenge.
On Zelda 1, that's why I struggled, I think, because I had a potion, and I think it was Dungeon 7, and I heard that the last one was really hard, you would need a potion for it, and I was a bit low on rupees, so I didn't want to use my potion. And I kept struggling, because every time when you died on Zelda 1, you start with 3 hearts.
Yeah.
And obviously when I was going into I think it was Dungeon 7, I kept dying in the first or second room because of Dark Nuts. And I didn't want to use my potion, so I was like trying to farm hearts, and I kept dying after a hit. And once I thought, I'm just going to use my potion, and then I went in, I could take 1 or 2 hits, and I just got through the room, and after that I just breezed through it. Yeah. And then actually I think I did get enough rupees in the next 2 dungeons to get another potion for Ganon's castle.
I had quite a lot of rupees.
But the only reason I was struggling is because I didn't want to take a potion. As soon as I drank a potion, I could take 1 more hit. And I breezed through it.
Yeah, that's what I found. I found number 1 was more relaxing.
Yeah,
not as stressful.
What would make that game hard is more the exploration. If I didn't have a guide, I'd have been on it for weeks trying to figure out where to go.
You'd never know where to go.
Because even then, I think Dungeon 8 is under a bush in the middle of a random screen. You have to burn a bush to get in.
And then you have to use that the flute, I think it is, for the whirlwind to take you off to somewhere else or something. Is that what it is? Can't remember.
There's one up there where you have to access through the flute. And it's...
You wouldn't know that.
A proper old school NES game where it's the only game you own and your friends are around and you're spending hours exploring.
Until you went to school and someone said, oh, you can do that. And you're like, no way. And then, you try it out yourself.
Yeah, well, I think for Zelda 1, I think the hardness about that is the exploration. The actual dungeons themselves and gameplay isn't that bad.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's I don't know what else to say about Zelda 2. Like I said, the music, I enjoy it. There's not much to it in terms of music. Like Zelda 1 only has a couple of tunes in it, really. But yeah, for what it is, it's a great game. And experiencing it today, as a kid, I don't think I could have got even quarter of the way through it. But as an older person, to appreciate a game with a challenge, I find it's a nice game. And people that struggle with it, maybe you see these people when they're like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, getting into gaming, playing it, and they will put it down. But maybe in 20 years' time, they'll go back to it and they'll finish it and be like, yeah, that was a cracking game.
Yeah.
But if I had my skill now as a kid, then I would have loved it and I would have, rated it highly then. But like I said, couldn't do it.
Imagine how many people's doing that right now, going back and playing it now after just dying as a kid, and the accomplishment now of beating that game.
That's it.
Like you've done, and like Simon did himself. I never played it as a kid, so the first time I played it was pretty much when I streamed it. I'd give it a quick go before. I think it was on a stream, but I never really knew much about it. So,
but it's not a bad game, is it? It's all right.
I enjoyed it. I really did. It's probably up there with one of my favourites. One now, just for the challenge alone.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
And your second favourite Zelda game?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ocarina of Time. My first experience with that was I was about 15, I'd say, when it came out. And I knew it was coming out and you could pre-order it in the shop. And my friend's like, there's this new game coming out. It's called Ocarina of Time. And I was like, oh, what is it? It's like, oh, it's a Zelda game. And I was like, okay, I'm getting to that. I didn't really know much. I didn't get magazines or anything like that. Obviously, the internet was like limited. I didn't really have access. It was 56k and things like that. So, and he's like, this game's coming out. And I was like, I'll grab it as well. And he's like, yeah. So we both got it. And he was like, oh, I've played it so good. Yeah, I've put in about 2 hours. And I was like, yeah, I finished it. And he's like, what? You finished it? And I was like, yeah, I smashed it. I basically didn't put it down until I'd finished it. And for me, it was my first, my first 3D adventure, like proper 3D adventure. Because you get the games on the PlayStation and stuff like that. They weren't anywhere near that. You've got your, Breath of Fire, things like that. You've heard of your Final Fantasies. But this was a proper 3D because they say that what I read, I think it was the Ocarina of Time was actually going to be a remake of Zelda 2, but actually on the N64. That's what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And obviously, you heard about it beforehand, and it was a case of there's a video out. And you remember the video where he's fighting one of the, what they called lizardos? Is that what they're called? I'd always forget the name.
Yeah.
And he's fighting it, and it's like a 3D animation, and people are like, whoa, look at the graphics on that. And then they released the game, and it blew me away.
Yeah.
And, you know, Navi flying in, and you wake up, and you've just got, well, you're a kid. You've got no responsibilities. You wake up. There's nothing to do. You just sit in your village, you mess about with your friends, and it's like real life. You're a kid. And at that age, I was like 14, 15. So I was a kid, and I had no responsibilities. I went to school, I come home and played games and messed about with my mates. And then you play the game, and you get to the point where you pull the Master Sword, and your mind just explodes, and you turn into an adult, and you're like, suddenly... You walk outside the temple and everything's ruined.
Yeah.
And you just think, right, you've got, like, what's the word? You've got responsibilities. And it's like real life. You were a kid, you had nothing, and now the world is in your hands. You've got to save the world. And for me, that just blew me away at the time. Yeah. And that's what I like about Ocarina of Time. And other people, I know Simon wasn't a fan of it, but, like, for me, at that time in my life, that was, you know, I was about to finish school. I had responsibilities to get a job and, you know, move out and things like that. And it's just kind of rings home and you feel like it's a connection. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and yeah, it blew me away. The music, the gameplay, the weapons, the locations, the characters are hilarious. Love going to the Goron Mountain. Yeah. You know, they always make me laugh. And the bosses have got tactics, proper tactics again. It's not like, oh, it's Zelda 1 and you just come up and hit it a few times, drop one bomb, it blows up and it's dead, like the Dodongo. It's like you have to fight it, and it's rolling round, and it's taking over everything, and you get the weapons, you find new weapons, you upgrade weapons, and I just can't fault it. And non-stop, I played that game pretty much on repeat, finishing it over and over and over. And then I went to a friend's house, and they were like, I've got this game, I've never played it, I can't get into it, it's too hard or whatever. And I was like, whack it on, I'll play it. And then they sat there while I played it and finished the game.
Yeah.
And for me, it's one of the greatest games of all time.
Yeah.
A Link to the Past, of course, is, like you say, it's your favourite.
Of course.
Link to the Past is fantastic, but Ocarina for me was the biggest. It was the 3D setting.
Oh yeah, it took it to a whole new level, didn't it? It pretty much defined like 3D games, didn't it? Like, especially in that franchise. Obviously, that Mario 64, but for Zelda, just to go into the 3D and do it so well, and obviously the L target and Z target, and that just
that helped a lot with the battles for me.
It just made 3D games so much, like, I don't know, it just made it worked, didn't it?
Yeah, I get Simon.
Again, I'm playing through it again now on N64, and I'm loving it. I really am loving it.
That's the only reason I don't play it on 64 now, is just because it's so blurry. It's just, when you go from, you kind of get spoilt with today's technology. So, you know, I've got the 3DS. I can play the 3DS version when I want to. And it's, you know, it's got a little bit more polish to it.
Yeah.
But the N64 one's got a charm. I know the Majora's Mask obviously went the different route with the story and the way you could change it to different characters, which was cool. And I had the special edition of that when it came out with the hologram lenticular. And I was like, right, I'm ready for this after playing Ocarina. And I put it in. I played it probably about 3/4 of the way in, and I never went back. And I've never finished it to this day. I don't know why. I just got... I know I got to like the water area with the Zoras, and you're the guy and you're playing in the band and things like that. And I was just like, I just stopped. And I don't know why never went back. I don't know at the time if it just didn't feel the same. But to me, Ocarina, even though it's not as polished at the time, you've got to appreciate it for what it was when it came out. And it blew my mind.
Yeah, like for me, Ocarina was kind of, to be fair, that's what kind of got me into Zelda collecting and the franchise in general. Because as I said, I did Link to the Past and I fell in love with that game, watch it. But I never played Ocarina of Time until I got a GameCube.
Yeah.
I got a game. Right, in fact, my brother got a GameCube for his kids, and it was the Zelda one.
Yeah.
So I think like a few weeks before Christmas, I tested it for him. So I set it up and I put Zelda in, as you do, and I played Zelda and I put it in, and I played Ocarina of Time because I knew Wind Waker was the new game. Can they come with the bonus
Was it the
disc?
bonus disc?
Yeah, so I put the bonus disc in. I played Ocarina of Time, and like in one day, I think I did like all 3 spiritual stones. I didn't pull the Master Sword, but I got up until the point where you want to pull the Master Sword, and then I remember that obviously I couldn't save nothing, so it wasn't my computer, it wasn't my game. I couldn't put a save on the memory card or nothing like that. I don't even think I had a memory card in at the time. I think I was supposed to be testing, and I was just spending all day playing Ocarina of Time, and then obviously. So I wrapped it up and did it. And then for Christmas, I ended up getting, I think my parents got me one because they knew I'd play that, so I ended up getting it myself. So I ended up playing Ocarina of Time all the way through on the GameCube. But I seen it and it blew me away because obviously I missed the N64 out completely.
Yeah.
And then when I played it, obviously, and I just got into the lore so much, I remember finishing it. And then I went on the internet and started on these forums, and there was a whole rumours of the Triforces hidden behind the Deku Tree and all that kind of stuff, and all these rumours and stuff. And then I started getting involved in like forums of when the new game was coming out, the rumours for Twilight Princess and all that kind of stuff. And that just got me so much into the lore and behind Zelda. And so
it's fantastic.
So Ocarina of Time on the GameCube just got me just so wrapped up in the Zelda universe itself. That pretty much, if it wasn't for Ocarina of Time, I wouldn't be the Zelda Collector or stuff like that. I mean, because it was that game which got me hooked into, just the lore, because that's what I love most about the games. I want to find out. It's
actually a proper story. Like, it's actually got content in it. You know, you're learning about these places, which the other games didn't really give you that. If that makes sense, they didn't give you as much info. There's more to it. Like, you learnt stuff, and I never needed a guide. But actually, tell a lie. I've said this before. I can't remember if it was to you though, but I rung the Nintendo hotline back in the day because I got stuck. And it was the UK line, and it was in the Goron place. It was all fire, and you got the platforms, and I watched you play it, and there's a door, and I remember you saying as well while you were playing it, how'd you get up there? And then you jumped and got on it. But I didn't think to jump. I was just like, you can't make that jump. It was like the level was there. There's no way he's going to make that jump.
Yeah.
So I rung up and I'm like, I'm in this room. This is the floor. And they were like, just jump. And I was like, it won't make it. There's no way. And he's like, jump. And I moved and it just jumped. And it didn't, the animation, like the floor's there, and he's there. And it just went, and then he pulls himself up, even though he's nowhere near it. And I was like, to me, I was like, this shouldn't have happened. I was like, yeah, that's a bit of a glitch. But yeah, that's my only time I used a guide, which is ring a gnat and make a jump. But the whole game was nice. It felt good. It progressed nicely.
Yeah.
Can't fault it.
No. It's brilliant. But I'd say I just put a bit where you're on about like it was a proper story and had like proper lore and stuff like that. It's funny I should mention that your two favourite games are Zelda 2 and Ocarina of Time, because you know about the lore and backstory. If you ever noticed that the towns in Zelda 2 have the same names,
the names,
as the sages. Because obviously
Bruto and things like that.
They picked the names from them towns and call them the sages, and obviously in the timeline, Ocarina of Time is before Zelda 2. So they say so theoretically when you read it, they name their towns after the sages. Yeah. Even though the game come before, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. I did know they named the things. I didn't think of it like they were, the opposite way around.
The opposite way around, because Ocarina of Time is a prequel to Zelda 2, so they kind of did that in saying that they named their towns after the sages. And that's what I love about Zelda and all the lore, and just connecting all the games together, little dots, and I love it.
You could read forever. There's always, of course, it's never ending. Never ending.
Obviously in the lore in Ocarina of Time with the whole creation of the Triforce, and that's where it all come into play, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I say all the time that it's 1955 of Back to the Future. Ocarina of Time for me is in 1955 of Back to the Future. That's the central hub of all Zelda games. All timelines span from that one, you know what I mean? And that's the most important part of Zelda. I love it. And every game can be traced back to Ocarina of Time, I think. It's either leads up to it or it spans from it. It's always... Nearly every game in the Zelda franchise, it's got some tie to Ocarina of Time, somehow, somewhere.
Yeah, somehow, yeah.
It's
like Breath of the Wild.
Exactly. Well,
There's places in there like the farm where you get Epona.
Yeah.
That's there. And people are like, oh my god, look what I found. And when you're playing the game for the first time and you haven't heard any spoilers and you've just played it yourself and you find things like that, you're like, oh my god. And then you find like the Temple of Time and things like that. And Yeah, it's amazing.
Definitely every console release, because obviously you have Wind Waker, which is a direct sequel. You have Twilight Princess, which is a direct sequel again. You know what I mean? A Link to the Past, which was supposed to be a sequel. Ocarina of Time was originally made as a prequel to it. You know what I mean? If you look at it, if they say it like the way it is, I mean, obviously the sequels on different timelines. You know what I mean? And then you have Skyward Sword, which was a prequel leading up to it. It's Majora's Mask, which is obviously a sequel again to it. I mean, it's a game with about 4 sequels. You know what I mean? And they are all sequels on different timelines.
Different timelines.
Yeah, it's incredible. So it holds all the games together. Because the storyline is so good and all. It is a great storyline. The creation of Triforce, and you have Ganondorf, his roots. You know what I mean? And you have the obviously introduction of the Gorons and the Zora and stuff like that. It's incredible. It is a fantastic game.
Yeah, that's my 2. Fantastic. But as I said, it changes all the time. Breath of the Wild, I could go. I don't want your stream to be Breath of the Wild every single time someone comes on. So I decided I would change it a little bit. But Breath of the Wild is fantastic, and
of course
it's mind blowing, and I can't fault it at all. Like, every moment in that game was flawless from start to finish. And when it ended, I felt like, not shedding a tear, but you just felt sad because it's over.
Yeah, because it's over. That's why I've gone back to do it again
with the DLC.
Mode.
I played the DLC and I enjoyed the DLC as well. But yeah, I want more story. I want another mode. I want another DLC where you play as the champions. I'd love that. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you can go around, fighting, and then you go to obviously fight your version of Ganon, and then you lose your life, but you battle valiantly. That would be amazing. I'd love that. It'd be fantastic. Because I want to know more story. I want to know exactly what happened, why, each character's the way they are.
They're good at that, aren't they? Giving you just enough to want more. They
want more.
That's why, again, they always, I think you always want you to fill in the gaps, don't you? It's always your interpretation of what happens. I always find with Nintendo and the Zelda franchise, they let you fill in the blanks. Even with wall games, I mean, Ocarina of Time, the war that was raging before, pretty much, how old's Link? 7-year-old?
Yeah, he's a child, yeah.
So there's a war going on 7 years before that game even starts, because obviously Link's mother goes to the woods and gives this baby to the Deku Tree to escape from war. So you're thinking, what's going on there? You know what I mean? There's history in the games. Is when you look into it all, it's incredible. Breath of the Wild, you so want to know what happened. 10,000 years ago. You know what I mean?
You always want more.
You want to know what happened 100 years ago in the fight. I'd love to be on Hyrule Castle playing as a soldier.
Yeah, anything.
Fighting off
just
the Guardians. You know what I mean? They always give you the more storyline they give you, just the more you want. You know what I mean? It's incredible.
Yeah, fantastic. But yeah, that's my two games. Thanks for letting me have 2.
Yeah, no problem at all. 2 fantastic games there. I agree with both of them. And thanks for picking 2 great games there, Kev. Like I said, I think that'll be the end of part 3. We've had a good discussion there. We discussed Kevin's 2 favourite Zelda games in the franchise. And in part 4 next week, we're going to be discussing a topic of your choice. Do you want to let people know what that will be?
It is Willow for the NES, which is a Zelda. What's the word? It's if you looked at it, you would go, it's Zelda. And if you look online, people do say it, but it's not a really well-known game, so it's quite interesting. Yeah,
well, we had this with Simon in the last one. He picked the Golden Axe Warrior, which again is more of a...
I've heard about it. I've not played that.
Yeah, it's more a bit like a clone, a homage, a love story, whatever you want to call it. It's yeah. But yes, so join us next week in part 4 where we'll be discussing Willow on the NES. So I shall see you all later. Bye.
Bye.